Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. I am so excited to bring you this new guest, Alex, because he is also an artist, and I'm an artist, as you guys know. And he is bringing parts of how art is changing and how is helping people connect with their higher selves in these beautiful times. Welcome, Alex. I am so excited to have you here in my podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm excited too. I'm doing super well today. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. I'm very excited. I was looking forward to recording this with you.
hmm
So tell us a little bit about you, about how you came to be who you are right now in your spiritual journey with your art and what you're teaching, and like just tell us a little bit about you for people who don't know.
Okay. Well, I think what led me towards where I am, I think is curiosity. I think that's a big part of who I am. I study Vedic astrology now, and I get to understand myself on an even more intricate level through it. And I can see in my personality is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the planet of curiosity, of just wanting to learn about everything. And how this played out was like ever since I'm young, always trying to find answers about random things. Like I remember being young, I had I was in the my mom was grounding me for doing something bad. I would go in my room and I would just, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take advantage of this time to learn new words, and I would just go through the dictionary and try to learn new words. And this was like very like early on in my life, and this kind of continued through my teenage years with documentaries. I was always consuming information about random topics just to be aware of the most things possible. And then eventually, as I entered art school, which was another kind of weird moment for me because I was interested in photography. So I thought I was actually applying very last minute to this kind of photography, like professional photographer, studio, lighting school. And it ends out like I was so last minute, I didn't do the check and I got in an art school that was super like they would only take 20 people per year, and I was just like, okay, I'm in. And then I first week of school, I'm like, okay, art history classes, this. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So this kind of led me this path of doing art, which at first I was a bit lost in this because in Canada you get into university, you're 21 years old. Just that we have CEGEP, which is like in between high school and university, 2 years. You don't learn like who you are really. Like at this age, I had no idea who I was. I was curious, but that was pretty much it. And then I had to like create art about topics because it's a conceptual art school. So I was like, what am I about? What do I have to say? And what's my art about? So I was very intuitive with it, and a lot of my interests back then were French literature, like Guy de Maupassant, and all these kind of mysterious worlds that were created by this author, as well as quantum physics, which for me was also like so fascinating to understand this kind of invisible energy. All these experiments that try to demonstrate abstract things that we cannot even conceptualize within ourselves. But then there was kind of this barrier where like, okay, well, what's next now? Quantum physics is trying to demonstrate big topics, big questions. The thing is they're looking often for the effects of things and they're studying the effects, but what's the cause of all of this? So then I had to turn towards more the spiritual and ancient text and started to study very, very ancient texts from various philosophies to get an understanding of these questions and how to integrate. And this kind of naturally led me to be looking for also practices because these ancient philosophy, you can read them, you can try to rationalize them, you can communicate them, but to really know what they're about, you really have to put yourself into the mind of the author. And the mind of the author, most of these authors of the ancient texts were highly spiritual people that had a very deep inner world, and they developed this through different techniques. And that's what got me into like, okay, what is meditation? What is ritual work? How does this work to program the mind and open it up so that you can understand these bigger concepts? So yeah, so that's kind of like the timeline, the abstract timeline of of where I am now. And then
Mhm.
there's so much that went in between, you can imagine.
Yeah. So you didn't know you were going to art school. You thought you were going to photography, and then you just happened to get into this program that only takes like 20 people.
Yeah, yeah, that
So
was
that really sounds like divine guidance there.
yeah, and I think like when I look back, I've been reflecting upon this also lately because it's good to go back to understand where you are and seeing like the synchronicities of my life. I have always felt since I'm young a kind of a pull, almost like a magnetic pull towards a specific direction, like almost like I'm being guided by like very magical events happening in my mind, in my life. And so I've learned, not even learned, it was kind of an innate thing to just follow it. Like if something like that happens, like for me it's cool, it's exciting, I like what's unknown, so if something very random happens to me, I'll step right in it and I'll try to like learn from it and be amazed by it. So that's kind of the energy that I have been using in these kind of weird events where I'm in an art school all of a sudden and I know nothing. I have no artist friends. I have no artists in my family. I'm just there.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about this force that pulls you forward. That's so interesting because um, I've interviewed a lot of people and we're talking a lot about intuition and following your intuition, following the hits or the downloads. And these are kind of like words that people use in the
Mm.
spiritual world. But this kind of like magnetic pull, that's different. I haven't heard that before. So tell us a little bit more about
Mm.
this. Maybe there are other people out there who are feeling that as well and they haven't put it together yet that
Yeah,
that's their pull, their higher
yeah,
self.
yeah. That's interesting because I have not thought of that this way yet. I've always said it this way, like as a kind of a sensation that that is not like something I can like isolate together. But if I think about it, and because also of my astrology background now, I can see and different mediums I've seen and different things that I think I have a lot of past life karma that I'm finishing here. So there is a lot of momentum. It's not like I came into the world with just blank slate, just create something and see what happens, follow the path that is in the stars. It felt like there was already like almost like I was writing a book in the past life and I only got to the half of the book to write, and so now I incarnate in this life and I already intuitively know what the first half is about and I have to write the next half. So it's this kind of like feeling like I'm here to do something. I don't know what, but I have a purpose. I'm very purpose led since I'm young. Like when I was a teenager, I knew I was so careful not to drink too much, not to take drugs that would that had the potential of harming me in the long term. Like very young, I was aware of these things. All my friends would take drugs and do those things, and I was like, no. Like I was very aware of my health also because as if like I know these things from the past. So yeah, it really is this kind of yeah, I guess this divine kind of pull. And I know this because I was a very risk-taking kid, if I can say,
Mhm.
like extreme sports, like almost died drowning once while surfing in a river, like so many things, but always had these miraculous like things happen where I get out of it, as if there's kind of a presence that's always watching over me and is like, hey, I told you you have a purpose, stop doing these things. I'm gonna save you another time, but like like
That's so
or like
interesting. Now that you're saying this, like I'm remembering too, like I had very similar things through my life where I would put myself in a situation and then I would think, like this is not the smartest thing to do. And then right in the moment, something would happen and I would come out, be like, oh, like, thank you. Like, I don't know. Like, and it's this thing that just happened through life that it's like, hey, you're being watched over for real. You're being guided. It's so
yeah,
cool.
and at some point like you think you're just a lucky person, then the more I was doing my research, like my friends knew me as the lucky guy, you know, like I'm always lucky
Mm-hmm.
with all sorts of things. But then with my own studies, I'm like, okay, no, there is no luck. I don't believe in luck. Like, I believe in what the Hermetics would say, like there is law unknown. So like laws that we are not aware of that regulate stuff above us and the other worlds,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not luck. So when I put these things together, I'm like, okay, so what is it? And that's when I kind of started to go deeper into like my purpose. You know, why is all these things happening? Because it's not just because I'm a chosen one. I have to be like it is because there is a calling that I have to like. It's not for nothing. They would not just give me all this luck just so that I can just live a 9 to 5 job and fulfill my egoistic desires. So then I'm like, okay, so how can I use this, and why is this? Why is it so? Why are these karmas in action in my life, and what can I do to honor those? So that got me into like tapping into something bigger than me, you know, letting go of the ego and kind of focusing on how I can be of service. And that happened not that long ago, that kind of switch, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're so aware of what is going around you about like, like questioning part of you is just feels very innate, right? Like this knowing of I am here for a reason, and what's the reason? And asking that
Mm-hmm.
next question and asking that next question, which really is what guides you forward and brings you to the next best journey on your path.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good to hear this because in our world we are always listening to like follow your intuition and just go with what you're feeling, your gut feeling, all of this. And when we do this, you are the proof that as you don't question, as you just go with the flow, as you feel curious and excited
Mm-hmm.
about what you're receiving, you're going to that next level, and then you are opening up and expanding even more. So that feels really expansive and it's really good to hear.
But I also, about what you just said, I do think also like, because I hear you that like this message of following intuition is very, I guess, mainstream, you know, it
Hmm.
is a strong message that we hear on social media and often. And I think that is true, like listen to your intuition. But I do also think there is also some nuances to bring, because in the society we live in, since we're born, we always have intuition, but there's layers on top of it. And so sometimes when I feel it can be misleading when someone hears follow your intuition, but you have not learned to listen to yourself yet. And so like you then it can mix you up more, because then what is my intuition, you know? You hear
Yeah.
something, you doubt, but maybe it's an intellectual thing. Maybe it's a conversation that you've had before that this person, by asking you this question, reflects upon, and then you think your intuition is telling you the answer, but it's actually just the answer of another old conversation that's stuck in your head from a week ago, and stuff like that. So I think what the nuance I want to bring is just like intuition is, because of the realm we are born into, like in the 21st century, it's something that we have to kind of learn to work with again. For some people from past lives and stuff, it's more naturally, this gift is stronger.
Mhm.
But intuition is like the science of the heart, of the spirit, and to be able to connect with it, you need to learn to listen, and the right to listen. And because of our overemphasis on the intellect in this day and age, our intellect is often running many programs at once. So when we're like, okay, I need to listen to my intuition, often we're just hearing the echoes of the program and not really our intuition, which happens in the silence, in the void of the heart. Only when you're there can you actually start paying attention. And once you're in this silent space, then maybe like a thought will pop in, and this thought will be channeled. And it will not be like just a program running like usual. But you need to silence and be in the void before this can happen. And that's my like my own experience. So I'm sure there's many interpretations of this, but that's something that I feel strong within me.
Yeah, amazing. I love the way you explain that. But how would you explain, let's say, for example, somebody is about to walk down the street and then they just have a hit or their intuition is like, no, let's take this other road instead. And they do.
Hmm.
And then nothing happens or everything's fine. Or they get that feeling and then like, what is that? And they just keep going. And then something happens. They have a, some type of encounter that is not as pleasant. So when you're just walking and you just get a hit like that, and you're not in that space of just the quiet mind or the quiet heart, how would you
Hmm.
explain that?
Yeah, like there's many mysteries about that. Uh, an interpretation I could think about is like our unconscious mind is like the sum total of all of our experiences in this lifetime and in past lifetimes. So we've lived, imagine like AI. So we've lived a million of situations, and consciously we cannot recall all of them. But unconsciously, everything is there. The data is all stored in the back of your mind, all the possible things that you've lived, all the things your eyes have seen, even in the corners of your eyes, even if you are not focused on it. Everything is there. And like AI, can detect just with a camera in a city, can detect if someone looks like a threat or someone that's gonna like do a terrorist attack just with their facial expression, because AI can scan all the possible outcomes of these types of expressions, linking the arms, the feet, and all the nonverbal cues. The same is happening with your unconscious mind. Unconsciously you're programming all those data, and then intuitively, or this kind of recalling, that if you were to consciously be like, oh, this equals perhaps an accident that's going to happen there, well, then it does it automatically. But then it begs the question, like, is that intuition? Because the intuition I'm talking about is more like, it's not connected to the unconscious, it's higher than that. It's kind of like, the way I studied it, there's like the three realms.
Hmm.
So the physical, and then there's the emotional realm, which is kind of like connected with the subconscious mind as well. And then there's the spiritual realm above that, which is connected to your higher self and the guides that are up there. So like channeling this kind of higher guidance. And then there's also the collective unconscious that's in the middle realm, where in the astral realm, the emotional realm, they're all kind of synonyms. I'm wondering, I don't know the answer, but perhaps that's where this kind of situation would draw upon this information.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Thinking back of what you said before about quieting the mind and being in that stillness place where you can actually receive the channeling messages, is this how you channel your artwork?
Yeah, more and more. I guess like I in my art career, I see like three phases. The first phase was me kind of unconsciously doing art, and then there's like the beginning of the second chapter is when I was like, oh, I think I I can study what I did unconsciously to learn more about myself. So then I went back, studied all my paintings I did in the past, my artworks, and then learned that they were actually communicating something through the symbolism, the colors I chose. All of it kind of informed something that was subconsciously trying to be revealed to me. So the artwork becomes kind of a mirror. Everything you create becomes a mirror for introspection. That's what I found out. And that began the second phase of my art, where now I was using art consciously to program things and to manifest things. So, or to like manifest things that were not necessarily like a car, manifest more things like, I want to understand what the divine feminine energy in its most pure form is about. Okay, I'm going to do a program, a painting, and see with time how these answers will come to me as I'm programming them. And so that's phase two. And now phase three, which is more recent, it's more like, now the art I'm trying to make is not about me, my unconscious mind, and trying to learn about myself. It's more, how can I be a channel to create something that is benefiting the collective whole. And how this comes about, like when I'm painting these ones, it is more like my personal life actually informs it. So like, it's not just a moment in time where I'm silent and I have this. It's all my life. As I'm painting it, I leave space for improvisation, and then I get in my regular life, I get some clues And then when I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know this has to come in my painting, and then I add it. And over time, it creates a narrative that I could not have planned. And then I can, once it's done, I can then observe it and be like, okay, what is this about? And then it reveals a lot through just that, you know.
Wow. Do you have, by any chance, anything that you want to share with us? Like show us some of your art, or
Oh,
I don't know
here.
if you have anything with you.
Well, I can briefly show you because right now I'm traveling the world, so I'm not my art. I have some art in Spain, some in Canada and Montreal, and some in Vancouver Island. So I don't have any with me in France.
Okay, well,
But the
we
one
can just
I
put some link if you want at the end.
yeah, for sure can link. Yeah, my Instagram is where kind of I post them most, and once they become a series, then I post them on my website. But like I can, if I have this picture, I can maybe try to show just the recent one because I think it's I built this painting for so long, so it was kind of a it took me about 6 months to arrive to what you're gonna see. So yeah, and if you want to transition well with another question while I
Yeah,
find
sure.
the
So,
transfer.
I really like the part that you said before that your face too when you were creating. Let me make this bigger so people can see.
Yeah, it'll be probably better when you post it on. But yeah, that's one of the most recent ones.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry,
when you were
can I
talking
didn't
about the
get your question.
manifesting, you were talking about I was creating artwork and then it was manifesting, kind of like how to feel the divine feminine in these purest forms. How did that help you in your spiritual journey?
Well, that last statement that you just mentioned
Hmm.
is still helping me. So like I'm tapping in it, like it helps me because I think the world is shifting, and that collectively this kind of divine feminine energy must be remembered and reintegrate our minds. It's always there, but it's not in our conscious mind. It's behind the scene. Like the era we're just exiting now is the era where solar deities are worshipped, sun gods, the divine masculine, which got out of hand, of course, as we can observe. But the divine feminine is far. It's far away, and it's coming back. Through we have now more and more people that are aware of these things, that this rebalancing needs to occur. But yeah, I think that's what's going on is kind of a swing on the other side to rebalance these energies. And from my own experience, why we want this to be balanced, because the heart is what has been neglected in the past 2000 years, and the heart is the portal of the divine feminine. It is, really see it in my meditations like as a black hole, like a black hole of empty space, like a womb that you can enter and get out on the other side into the spiritual dimensions. And in the same way, like if you were to have a reverse birth, that's kind of what you would do, right? You would kind of enter this portal to the spiritual realms, and the heart it is the intemporal, timeless portal of this. But also learning about the divine feminine being in a masculine body helps me rebalance this within me, because I truly strongly believe every human has both polarities within them. Only they neglect one or they overemphasize one for social conditioning reasons, all of the psychological and societal reasons. But for me, it helps me to understand this part of me, my feminine part, my nurturing part, my compassionate part, but also learning about the divine feminine in the Kabbalistic point of view, which is an ancient philosophy from the source is unknown, but the Hebrew people say that it belongs to them, and that Abraham would have channeled this with the Ten Commandments actually being the 10 dots or circles on the tree of life, which is a map of everything, of our physical body, of our mental body, of the stars, the planetary system. It's everything. It's a kind of a holistic way of seeing life. And on top you have God, then you have the polar world on both sides, and it starts with the divine masculine, divine feminine on both sides. So that's when you look at this sphere, you can understand the archetypes of divine feminine, like Virgin Mary, Isis. There's many kind of representation in different cultures of this divine feminine. But something that groups them all is the influence of Saturn. Saturn being a planet with very strong energy that is very mysterious because it's pretty far from us, like even the solar system, and apparently would be kind of a portal for death. So it would be the portal when we die and when we come to this physical earth. It rules time, it rules karma. So by learning these qualities of Saturn, you can also understand this divine feminine in the more obscure way, like the way that we're not used to seeing it. The Saturn is also about its manifestation in its purest form. So imagine, like they would say that empty space is the divine feminine. All the space which all matter comes from was created through this empty space of the divine feminine in its purest form. And how it does this, it takes the light of God through its womb, its cosmic womb, its kind of divine matrix, and restricts energy into like a shape, sacred geometry, and then channels the light in a specific shape, which creates something in the astral realm, which creates something then in a physical realm. So like I'm learning all about this by this interest and by this latest painting I showed briefly on the screen.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, so my understanding of the divine feminine and the and creation is everything and nothing exists in the same space of the void of nothingness. And from
Mm-hmm.
there, each one of us creates our own reality. And I love the way that you explained it about making that a portal and then seeing that black hole in the heart. And I'm thinking like, yeah, that's the void. That's the space of creation. Like,
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it the way that you explained it, but also very interesting about how you channel this, what's these ideas and you put them into your painting and it just speaks back to you. It's a
Mm.
beautiful, harmonious way of receiving the messages. And the last thing I wanted to mention on this that you just mentioned about the divine feminine is all about creation and all about
Mm-hmm.
allowing things. So it makes complete sense that that's where everything is born from, that's where we are creating when we are in our masculine, which is like, study for years, get a diploma, work 9 to 5, get this much money,
Yeah.
right? All of that's the masculine, and no wonder we're feeling like we're trapped or like there must be
Yeah.
something else. Like what's going on? And it's because the creativity has been cut off. It's like, hey, this is the
Mm-hmm.
formula, follow this. And where's the creativity? Where's the part that we channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Like where's the open space for the magic to happen? You know,
Yeah.
if everything is always ordered and programmed, then where is the space to even get intuitive guidance? Where does that come in? And then the next step is like, well, what if I did have intuitive guidance? And what if this intuitive guidance told me to not do what I'm doing? Am I ready to like not do it? Because that's like the next steps of like, what if everyone was following like putting more space in between their schedule for improvisation, for divine guidance? Are they ready for it?
Well, that's what
That's something
COVID brought,
also.
right? That's what
Yeah,
COVID
I
brought.
guess
It
so.
brought that whole pause worldwide where
Hmm.
people found themselves, a lot of people, with like nothing to do during their time off work. And that's when they started going within. And that's where a huge, big awakening space happened because people had that space to
Yeah,
connect.
that's true. Yeah, like I do think there was a purpose for it for sure. Um, yeah, a lot of people went back to the basics. Like so many people also moved back to nature, which is also the material manifestation of the divine feminine, reconnecting to that within themselves, like from the concrete jungle of the city to making their own, growing their own spices and vegetables. And there was definitely like a more hands-on, like everyone was making bread. It's like using your creative
Mhm.
energy to like put ingredients together and create something. It did bring that back, but it was almost like it was necessary that it happened this way, but for some people it was also like survival. I have to do it, otherwise like I'm gonna crash and I don't know if I can come out of it, like depression and stuff. So it was forced upon people. So hopefully, like people that do feel like it was forced, because it's always the pendulum swing when something is forced and you don't want it, but sometimes when pandemic goes away, then it rebalances on the other extreme.
Mm-hmm.
When it's inspired, so like it's I realize that I need this from my own personal center, then it'll be balanced as it goes in any direction. It's not going to be like the big pendulum swing. So hopefully, like for most, it was not like that, but it's important, I think, to pay attention to these things as well. Are you like right now that there's no pandemic, are you going the other extreme
Yeah, so
or
many
not?
people are wanting to go back to the way it was. There is no the way it
Yeah,
was. It's changed forever.
yeah, it is changed forever, like forever. Like from astrological perspective as well, like it is. Yeah, there is. I like to study the astrological perspective because it gives also the bigger picture of things. And if you study in history the astrological events, you can also understand the big movements of society just to kind of confirm that you can trust astrology. Anyways, I study Vedic astrology, so I find it more precise a little bit. And what we're going on, like even since 2 weeks, we've entered like a lot astrologically, like a lot of fire, a lot of chaos, a lot of violence in the astral chart. Like I saw it coming, and it's supposed to be like until the midsummer, like until like August, that it will just get like it won't calm down, you know. But there is also like Mars goes into Aries, and Mars is exalted in Aries, meaning like Mars that's debilitated will just be aggressive just to kind of like prove a point, an egoistic type of aggression, you know, of violence. But if it's exalted, and I'm saying that because we all have Mars in our chart, and we can all tap into this energy for the best. And what is an exalted Aries? It's someone that leads. It's a leader that is fearless to express their own unique truth, always for the better good. And so this energy will be on all of Earth, will be potent, starting I think yesterday or something like that. It just entered like in Aries. So like on the negative way side, you can see what we're seeing in the world: war, extreme, like imposing of your will again on others instead of being confident who you are and leading from who you are and not imposing it on anyone. People will see your passionate self of whatever you are and you're doing, and they will decide to follow you because you are so passionate and you ignited the spark within them. That is the true exalted Martian leader that is connected to the divine masculine as well. So there is kind of this, like we see a lot of the negative part of it, the destruction part of it, because yeah, everything is getting destroyed, and it's not a good place to be, of course. But this energy can be also channeled for to benefit the others, and connect to your true flame, your true spirit of what you're here to do.
Well, destruction
Which
must happen. I mean, if what's coming through is like everything is just being destroyed because it needs to be replaced by something better, something that is
yeah,
aligning us with the new thoughts we're receiving, with the place that the new earth is moving into. And just like when you do a remodeling at a home, what happens? First, you destroy it and it's a total mess, and then you
mm,
rebuild it into the beautiful remodeling that you wanted. So I feel
yeah,
that's what's really happening in the
yeah,
world. And when it comes to light workers or people who are doing this type of work, that's what we're doing. We are holding the light
mm,
for those who are not open to this to be able to move through this destruction with more ease.
yeah. And again, I think that's what the mercenaries gives also. It's the rebuilding quality of it also.
Hmm.
You know, there's some destruction, but like you're not gonna focus on the destruction. You're gonna focus on what you can build and what you can inspire in people. So that is also the reverse of that energy. And also like another point of view of what's going on in the world that I resonate with is like there, even though like on Earth, even imagine like there was no war right now, there would still be a war. It would just not be physical, meaning like in people's minds there is still hatred, there is still like hate and all these kind of negative emotions that are in their heads because of their neighbors, of whatever they hate. And so these create spiritual wars. The mental realm is a spiritual realm, and there is a mental war. It's just because it's not manifesting in the physical. It's still there, and it's still consuming your life energy. Like this program of hate takes a lot of mental energy within your day, you know, and it's going on in millions of people's heads, racism, all those things. And so now what we're seeing is the manifestation of this tension that was there since so long in the physical, and it's the worst thing to witness and to be part of, but sometimes it's the necessity because there's no communication. Air is the element that kind of mediates between the forces, and if there's no air, there's no mercury, there's no communication, well then it's fire, that kind of fire against fire, and it destroys itself. So there is a better way to do it, but there has to be a way. It has to be done either by communication to reduce the mental confrontation that exists, or now it's in the physical way.
Yeah. The way that I have seen it is that the war that we each carry within ourselves is, as you mentioned, the manifestation in the wars outside.
Yeah.
And that's the part I think that's missing with so many because, people are hating, right? Like that person did that and that person is invading this and this, like the hate goes outwards without realizing that, hey, that I'm creator. I'm the creator of this. If I have and I see the judgment in both parties who are engaged in these fights, that means that I have that fight within me and that it has come to the surface to show us.
Totally. And that's it's such a hard thing to express as well in this day and age, you know? It's kind of like to the wisdom part, you almost want to not say it, you know, because it triggers people, and it can sometimes it's better felt but not said. Because if I'm saying that because if you were to say that of anyone that's in any of the sides, it will create even more anger, and it will be directed against you now. So
right, but the polarity has to exist, right? The good and the evil. There is no good and evil just in the 3D world.
I'm just saying it's the act of I just think it's a sensitive topic right now in the world,
It
like
is.
picking sides. And if you kind of have this kind of impartial, compassionate approach, people despise you. You know what I mean? That's what I've noticed. People don't like people that don't pick sides. They want to know, are you on my side or are you not on my side?
Correct.
Because the world is very separated right now. I don't know if I'm being clear.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's the total sense of that separation that we're just us and I get to choose what I feel and pick sides. And instead of the realization that we are all one and there are no sides. And this is why doing the inner work as you're doing, as we're all doing in this type of community, is what brings that light forward to allow others to be able to also shine their light and to also stand true to who they are, without having that fear of being um, not liked or because it's going to
Yeah.
happen, it's going to
Yeah.
happen. People are just going to fall off the radar. It's not an easy journey, but it's what we're here to do. Is to light up the truth and bring up the light so that other people who are feeling as we're feeling the truth and find themselves
It's
like, oh,
true.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I actually feel that way, right? Yes. If you
What do
ask
you say?
anybody in the world, like, they choose war or peace, most people are going to choose
Yeah.
peace, right? And it's just the programming and the following of what I must do that is creating the action into the atrocities that we're seeing.
Yeah, it is. I think it's necessary that it's this way, like in the sense like this separation is the most obvious now between people. Hopefully, like once the dust settles, we realize that we are just the same dust that has settled. You know, we're all part of the same dust. The borders are non-existent anymore. It's just one earth, and like it sounds utopic, but I do feel hopefully in the next, I don't know, 200 years, this will be more of a common denominator between all of us, that this agreeing that we are all like earthlings. We are all humans,
I feel
and
it's
that
gonna
comes
happen
the
much
place.
sooner than that.
Huh?
I feel it's gonna happen much sooner than that. I mean,
I just feel like there's a lot of pressures from
mhm.
both sides that now we see just the side effects of those pressures, but they have until the whole pressure kind of has flattened out, and there's not just like physical war, there's like technological wars and ideological ethical wars. There's a lot that needs to be resolved between the common minds of humans before this kind of more universal peace
Peace.
can be considered, I think. And that's why I say 200 years, because I think there's a lot of steps to get there. It
Mhm.
doesn't happen overnight. It happens over generations, and like 200 years is not that much. Like, it's not an we're not going to be there, but like it's just a few generations.
But when you have
It's,
when you were talking about like destruction and like you're seeing the energies coming into bringing more destruction to the earth, that's what brings that peace and change, right? So like for example, we had 9/11, right? And
mhm.
then it was a huge disaster and you saw all the people come together all over the world. And especially right there where it happened in New York, you saw people, strangers, giving rights to other strangers to get home because people were stranded because all
Yeah,
transportation stopped. So you saw everybody come in and united as one. People were no longer seeing races. They were not seeing, different classes. They were just helping each other. And it was that part of humanity that happened that quickly because of that huge destruction. I
yeah.
feel like if we're thinking of, okay, all these things must happen in order to get there, yeah, that can take 200 years.
But I think that these things are just temporary, and that's the
Uh-huh.
problem. Like the last war is not that long ago, the last World War, and still it feels like we're on the edge of another one. And the same generation is still living. Can possible that it's still living.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think the reason that this is not a cure, like it doesn't war, okay, yes, there is a moment of peace after a war and
Mm-hmm.
a feeling of unity, of rebuilding. And the reason why it's temporary is because of the ego. The ego doesn't go away.
Yes.
And when I say the ego, I had another podcast yesterday, and I had to define it because I think it's important. Like the understanding I have of the ego is the personality. So all your programming, the programming is still there. Yes, there's a war, but your program that you're living and building since you're born is still there. It just now there's kind of this intense event that makes you for a little bit get out of your comfort zone, and then you don't have the choice to like reconstruct, and therefore you have to look around you. You cannot remain centered on your personality, on your self. But then once it's rebuilt, then it comes back again. So I think
Yes.
the big shift that has to come is a spiritual shift. It's a shift from a focus on the personality towards a shift towards focusing on the soul. Who am I on the soul level? Because the soul is what unites us all. The soul being the heart, it's the mediator between the realms. You have a soul personality, and you can see that in astrology. Our sun is in different houses. They have different aspects, and that gives us our soul purpose as well. It's always like united in the whole. All the souls of men are united in the whole. Once this focus is, and we've seen like certain different civilization that were more centered about this, about creating beauty in the world, like the early Romans were all about ethics, higher values, higher morals. It degenerated, but at first the intention was pure. I feel the philosophers also were very insightful in those times, and that was the ideal utopia that we're trying to recreate, these ideal sacred geometry in every building, following the sacred geometry of our bodies, of nature, and everything was designed in this way to embellish people, to embellish and unite us into this universal beauty that God is. And then arrived what we call modern marketing, that marketed desires to us, and then we became our desires. So like your personality is just a bundle of desires. I desire to have this Gucci bag, so now like I am at this status because this desire represents this status. And this has to, I think this is what has to break before there's a possibility of this more peaceful place on the long term.
Yeah, it was beautiful explained. I love that. So tell us a little bit about how do you help people now that you got into that understanding of before it was for me and now I'm helping the collective. How do people work with you? Like what do you offer?
Yeah. So, like Roze Umbra, I've been building, it's my business I've been building for a year. And it's like a painting for me. So it is there. I didn't want to follow a recipe that exists, funneling people in, and then you do this, and then this happens, and then you have this amount in your bank account, and you invest half in advertisement and this and that. That's not how I work in my life. So this being said, my business evolves slowly, and I learned through like the flow how it's building.
Mhm.
And so far, I do one-on-one consultations where I start with Astro Tarot, and just to get a connection with the people I'm working with on a deeper level. And then I have a background understanding the elements, because the four elements are the four faculties of men. They're also the four suits in the tarot. They represent our four faculties. And unless these four faculties are aligned, it will be hard to be heart-centered. You will always be pulled like more towards your intellects, more toward the material world. You will be more focused on the future or more dwelling in the past instead of being in the present heart center. So I help people to understand where this center is, and I use their own intuition and their own wisdom as well, because I develop my own tools for them. It's called a self-assessment tool. So I guide them towards extremes, and I ask them to position themselves in between those extremes that are connected with the four elements and the zodiacs. Not the zodiac, but the planetary energies that rotate around the center, which is the sun, the heart. So that's kind of the main objective. But my bigger vision, being an artist myself, I want to empower creators and artists, visionaries or not, but people that are inspired to create something that is more meaningful in their lives, whether it's their life, a business, or artwork. And in the aim is to help people become better mediums for spirit to use, to be able to channel these new codes to earth through their artwork, through their micro decisions in their lives, whatever it is, that it aligns into a bigger plan that their ego can not possibly understand. It only needs to be through the soul connection that this can come through. So I want to help people get to the tools to achieve this, and so that as a collective, this ripple effect, we can rewrite this new mythology of the future, which now we're destroying the old mythology of the dying sun god, Osiris, the Egyptian sun god, Jesus, the son of God, which is actually the same myth in a different context. But now it's the time of the age of Aquarius. We're not in the age of Pisces again. And so there's a new mythology to be written, and we each play a part to kind of start building this new mythology. And if we don't consciously choose to do that and align with it, the dark forces that exist in this physical realm will take advantage of it, and they already are trying to like put their claws in it so that they can take advantage of this new mythology and create it for themselves, for the 1% to be able to create the mythology where the 99% is under the spell of the 1%. But the only way to counterbalance this is by ourselves being empowered to create something that is for the collective. So I see these plays I inform myself a lot in these realms, and I see these two parts playing out. A lot of people are doing what I'm saying, and there's also the billionaires of the world who are very fluent in astrology and in magic, that are also casting spells on the collective unconsciousness, like by changing the statues in churches and creating these kind of new subtle realities within our societies. And I want to empower creators and artists to be aware of this and to create from an exalted place as to benefit the collective good and empower, like almost like lighting the flame in different people, and then they light the flame. So that is the bigger picture. And again, I told you it's a bit fluid how this will manifest.
Mhm.
For now, there is these one-on-one where I work with professional artists as well. I also do artwork for artists so that their own music or their own dance performance, the symbols they use are aligned with a bigger like meaning. And then I create retreats using astrology as well, where everything is kind of meaningful. So there is a container that is very meaningful. So every day following like on Monday, it's connected with the moon. So we're going to do more introspection connected with our unconscious. Tuesday is Mars Day. It's the day of action. So we're going to do a conscious workout. We're going to do and following this, but with the theme of that is specific to the best energy available to all of us in the sky. And so the next retreat is at the end of the month, June 30th, and the end of next month until July 7th. And we're going to work with the energies of Mars in Aries. So the warrior, the exalted warrior self, which is also connected with creativity, divine, and that's why it's called divine creativity. And we're going to be working every day consciously to understand this energy within us. And I use Vedic astrology to curate everything for specific for everyone that's going to be there in life. And that's why there will only be 8 spots open. So that's the second part. And then I have my own podcast as well. So I do showcase artists that are inspiring and that already do this aligned work of channeling and creating. And I showcase them on my podcast. So that's how for now it's kind of manifesting, but I know it's going to grow into something wherever it has to go. I'm open to following it. So
Amazing. I love it. I love all of the guidance. And also there doesn't seem to be any pressure, which is like the the 3D world is a lot of pressure, right?
yeah.
Deadlines and stuff, and get here and then you made it. But the way you're following your intuition and where it's taking you is like no pressure. It's like I'm enjoying it. I'm in here in the moment, and I'm open to whatever else. I mean, it's beautiful. I love that message that you're sending out.
And I think it's important to say that this is by design. Like I designed my life this way. It's hard to have a normal life and then all of a sudden have this life where you're just in the flow. But I intentionally quit my job a few years ago to be independently. Like all my life, I only worked part-time so that I could focus on my art at least part-time. And eventually I quit my job to focus on my art full-time. And eventually, now that I was independent, I was still feeling stuck because I had all these material possessions. And that's where I also sold everything I own. So now I'm really independent. Independent in the sense like I can follow the spirit, wherever it's leading me. Because, yeah, I can.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to put all of your links down on the description of this so people can find you and if they want to work with you. Where is this retreat happening at the end of June? What part of the world is it happening?
It's going to be south of Valencia in Spain.
Beautiful.
And today
Okay.
we're the 29, filming the 29th, and there's still 2 days left there's an early bird promo, and I give 90-minute Astro Tarot session for free if you book before that. Otherwise, you still have 30 minutes, but then you get like a longer session. But there's 2 days left. I don't know when it's going to be published, but
Yeah, amazing. So that sounds really yummy. If you're going to be in that area, it's in person, right?
yeah, in person. It's an hour from an airport, but there's some transportation, so it's going to be like an international type retreat. I believe it's going to be mainly Europeans and friends from America as well, probably.
Fabulous. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share with the audience or about you or about anything else before we go that we didn't touch in?
Yeah, well, I can just say that, yeah, with this project, Roze Umbra, I think there is something that I wish to leave to people is that whatever is in your heart, as scary as it can be, if you just kind of just put it out there, just start it. At first, you don't have to commit 100% to it, but it's gonna go faster if you do. But to just to do it, because that's the only way you're gonna see why you're not feeling fulfilled, why you're feeling this depression, this low energy, until you actually challenge yourself and go outside your box. as scary as it can be, the worst that can, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen if I do that? Like, what's the actual worst? And if there's something bad, see if there's in this worst case, if it's actually that worse. If there's actually something you could do in the worst case to make it not that worse. There's always a way. And yeah, it's all about aligning your energy. And if it's really aligned, things will synchronistically happen to you that will prove to you that you are on the right path. And you will feel so much more fulfilled when this flame is open in you. And because it is like fire, it is kind of this energizing energy that is activated when you do follow your passion. So that's, I think, something I wish to leave people with.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to this podcast. I really enjoy our conversation, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure too. Thank you for this beautiful space.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.